started. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ian Templeton. I work here at Kramden Institute as a business strategist, and I am so glad to see so many new faces. I really appreciate you all coming out today and attending this first of its kind event for us. The North Carolina Compass, Understanding the Future of AI Applications, Policy, and Regulation. We're honored to see such a diverse group of leaders here today from healthcare, education, government, technology, finance, and nonprofit world, all coming together to talk about something that's shaping our future in real time, artificial intelligence. The purpose of today's event is threefold. First, we hope you are able to gain insight from experts like our keynote speaker, I-Sah. Second, to learn and share knowledge across industries. And third, to connect and collaborate, because innovation happens when people and ideas intersect. At Kramden, our mission is to bridge the digital divide by providing technology access, education, and opportunity to all North Carolinians. Events like this not only spark important conversations, they also help us raise awareness about Kramden's work and the ongoing need for device donations that make our programs possible. So, as you enjoy today's discussion and networking, I encourage you to think about the ways your organization and community could partner with us, whether that's through technology donations, volunteer engagement, or spreading the word about digital equity in our state. Let me take a moment to thank three members of the Kramden board who were instrumental in formulating today's event. They're Jordan Rogers of NCTNA, Ian Freeland of Blue Cross Blue Shield NC, Mia Bailey of Charter Spectrum. With that, it's my pleasure to transition us to our Fireside chat and to introduce someone whose leadership is helping North Carolina navigate this new frontier responsibly and boldly, Mr. I-Sah.
Hey, y'all.
North Carolina's Deputy Secretary for Artificial Intelligence and Policy at the Department of Information Technology. I-Sah brings more than 25 years of experience in AI governance and ethics. In his role, he leads the state's efforts to build a responsible, transparent framework for how AI is developed and used across public agencies, ensuring innovation happens with accountability and trust. Before joining NCDIT earlier this year, I-Sah spent over 2 decades at SAS, where he advised policymakers, the United Nations, Fortune 1000 executives, and nonprofits on AI strategy and data ethics. He also worked closely with the North Carolina universities, nonprofits, and state agencies helping to bridge policy and real-world application. He's a proud Cornell graduate with a background in mechanical engineering and serves on the advisory board for UNC Chapel Hill's Master of Educational Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship program. Please join me in welcoming I-Sah CA and our Executive Director, Cyndy Robinson.
Introduction. Before I move on, I just want to say another shout out to a couple other board members who are here. First of all, our founder, Mark Dibner, is here. Our board chair, John Wilson from Wells Fargo, is here. And then Tom Dinkle, where are you? Tom is also a long-standing member of our board, so thank you, Tom, for being here. Yeah, it's great to see the diversity of folks in here. People from NC Rural Center, our consultants, North Carolina Telehealth, and NCNC Airport. Tamara, nice to have you too. So, all great. So let's, before we dive deeper into AI policy and ethics, maybe just touch a little bit on your personal journey. So, yeah. So Governor Stein and Secretary of DIT, Tina Piccioni, appointed you as AI guru. So before you took the position, what were you doing and what inspired you to take on the role?
Yeah, I don't know. Guru seems really like a, I'm just the AI guy. I tell you, for me, I spent 2 decades at SAS. For 15 of those years, I led our work with the United Nations, and I think that's what really prepared my heart and my mind for public service. That was some of my favorite work, like just helping after the Nepal earthquake or after the Typhoon Haiyan in the Philippines, when they were trying to figure out how to handle 250,000 displaced people and coming alongside them with data and analytics, analytics, traditional AI now as we call it, right? But that was always some of my most meaningful work. But I always walked away from those projects wishing like, it'd be fun to do it in my own country. And so when the opportunity came up to do it in my home state, people I know and love the most, I was like, this is too important for me to not be part of.
Wow, that's great. So walk us through kind of a typical day now as Deputy Secretary for Policy and AI. What was it? Well, how do you spend your time other than having chats with us?
No, this is wonderful. This is such a gift to me, by the way. You get me out of the office and out of my normal, I call it the grind, but it's, I'm working harder than I ever have, but I'm loving it because, I feel like I'm making a difference. So back-to-back meetings pretty much all day, every day, but they're great. When work with the governor's office almost daily on like, okay, where are we with AI? Where are we with the executive order? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But then later on in the day, I might be talking to Department of Commerce about, okay, how do we make North Carolina a place where startups, right, where AI startups want to be? Like we have everything we need. All the ingredients are on the table for us as a state to be a real leader, a real powerhouse in AI actually. And with all these AI dollars floating around, it's like, okay, how do we incentivize and have the right structure? So and then you go from that to just talking to the tech vendors really that are at the forefront of AI technology. And so I love it. It keeps me busy. It accesses different parts of my brain on a daily basis. And so I think the only thing that is difficult, and you can hear it, just my voice kind of gives out usually. Sorry for hitting the mic there. But my voice usually gets tired by the end of the day. And so yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So I think I've been to maybe 4 different meetings or conferences this year, and AI is everywhere, right? You're going to have a keynote, a panel, just the theme is AI all around. Why is AI such a big focus right now? Like right now and right here in North Carolina?
Yeah, so AI does kind of take up all the oxygen in the room at conferences these days, and I think it's a mixture of a couple of things. I mean, I think we all see the potential of AI. The state of North Carolina is so see that we have a 20% gap between the workers we have and the workers we need, right? And if you kind of look at the demographics, like a huge percentage of them can retire in the next 5 years. So AI can fill that gap from a productivity standpoint, So you have that. So that's why it's such a focus for us. But at the same time, every time you turn on the TV, you're kind of hearing, just a negative story about AI, right? Like think about, I ponder on these things. Like I'm like, when the iPhone first came out, everybody was excited to have one and trying to figure out how they can get their companies to pay for one, right? There's nobody I was afraid of, like, most people have that anyway, like, but that's different. What's the difference? People are scared of it. It's more powerful, and it should be respected. And it's not that we shouldn't tell the stories of the negative uses of these tools, but I think this is where we as public servants, and this is what I did with our work with the UN at my last job, that started our Data for Good program at SAS, where we told stories about how AI and data and technology were used to actually help, right? And so now I get to do this on a bigger scale through North Carolina. So yeah, so I think a ton of potential, but like any good tool, also a ton of potential harm that can be done. So you gotta be mindful of that.
Yeah. So in September, Governor Stein talked a little bit about how AI can transform the economy and the work that we do and life as we know it in North Carolina. Can you comment a little bit about what you know so far, or how you are formulating this AI strategy, and how we can sustainably and responsibly use AI? But what does that strategy look like?
Yeah, so I start every conversation, internal, external, with just one word, and that's trust, right? Like we need to build the trust of our constituents in our ability to use this powerful tool called AI. We need our colleagues, our state workers, to have trust in not just the technology, but in us as leaders. and that we're not out to replace them. Like again, I got a 20% gap. I don't want to replace anybody, even if I didn't have that gap, right? Because that's not building trust. That's not a trustworthy use of the tool to treat people in that manner. And so, but without trust, we're not going to go very far or very fast with AI. We're just not, you know. And so with that as kind of the foundation, and we think about what the strategy is, you know, I kind of separate things into two buckets, right? One is how do we, and all 60,000 North Carolina state employees that I have direct access and influence on, how do we get them to be the most AI literate state workforce in the nation, if not the world, right? Using AI for not just the benefit, but protection of our citizens and our guests here in North Carolina, because you know the bad guys are using AI and they're pretty effective at it, right? And so there's that aspect of, okay, how do we as state and public servants, and honestly in my mind I'd love to expand our reach and our resources, you know, and this is where again I'll take all the help that I can get, and even if it's just your voice to legislature or your vote, like may not forget to say that, you know, it's pretty often actually that my boss or state CIO will come to me with a question and say, hey, this legislator got this message from one of their constituents about AI. What do you think? So like, you know, your voice does matter. It really does. And that actually has been one of the most encouraging things for me, having just stepped into public service 6 months ago. Right? I'm like, okay, you know, like they are listening. So, but building the trust, making sure that we as public servants are good at and literate at AI, but I don't want to stop there. Like I want North Carolinians as a state to be the most AI literate workforce in the nation, right? And how do we do that? We have to have AI literacy, and so I'm so grateful for just the tech literacy and that you guys do, because I think like anything, with more education comes less fear, right? And by the way, let's draw this distinction. I don't feel like being AI literate is that high of a bar, although it's a good bar to have. So I'll give, for example, my 2 years of high school Spanish makes me literate in Spanish, right? Does it make me fluent? No. Yeah. Right? So there's AI fluency that really is the ultimate goal for us, but let's at least start by being the most AI literate. And again, North Carolina is not going to have the deepest pockets, you know, for AI. We're the largest compute centers, but what we can and will be known for is how trustworthy our AI is, how thoughtful, you know, how thoughtful we are at deploying our AI projects. Right? If you think about AI as a tool, like a car, let's say, you know, like we want to be the state that has the best driving record, right? The least collisions and the least accidents, that kind of thing.
That's really amazing. I've heard this term AI accelerator. What is an AI accelerator?
Oh, that's my happy place.
Oh, okay. I can take a break.
That, so as part of the executive order, first of all, I've got to say, like, I'm so grateful to have a governor who understands the importance, the potential, and the risks of AI to where they're, you know, he's willing to issue an executive order. His team leans in, like, again, I talk to them every day, and I'm grateful for that because that takes a lot of the friction out, right? What the executive order has done for us as a state is that it kind of nudges everybody, all the state agencies into the AI pool, you know, and my promise to the governor and everybody else is like, hey, we'll make sure nobody drowns, we'll make sure everybody comes up with a smile on their face, like, just, but everybody starts at a different place in their AI journey, you know. Some are excited, some are scared, some are both, right, all at the same time, and so the accelerator is that place where North Carolina state agencies can come and innovate. You know, I'm trying to bring that kind of private sector notion of innovation into state government, and that's different, right? And I'm glad it's different right now because, you know, our public servants, they're not accustomed to failing. They can't fail. Like they have to be, you know, they have to make sure it's perfect and that it works all the time. But I'm saying, hey, here in the AI accelerator, we're gonna fail fast. We're gonna fail cheap. You know, like we don't want to spend 6 months or a year figuring out whether an AI project works or not. You got 60 days. Here we go. You know, and that's how I set up the Data for Good program when I was at SAS, using again data and analytics and AI to help tell some good stories, I don't feel like it's that different here. Where, okay, we may not go as deep, in the 60 days versus 6 months that other states are doing. So that's one thing that makes North Carolina's accelerator and the Center of Excellence unique is our ability, our framework to say, okay, let's get 60 days. And it all starts within agencies, raising their hands saying, hey, here are some real world problems that I have. Does AI have a solution for me, right? And so, because otherwise we can do a lot of academic exercises and pull data off the internet. But what I want and need is for, at the end of that exercise, for a state agency to make the decision of, okay, is this juice worth squeezing? Should we pursue this, or should we shelve it and move on to the next problem we want to solve with AI?
So the accelerator is a compilation or consortium of the state agencies working together?
So yeah, it starts with the state agencies, but this is where we bring together state agencies and all of the vendors that are out there, right? Because we can't do it alone, and we don't want to. So this is where the vendors, the private sector comes in and says, hey, we have a solution for that, or hey, here's our latest algorithm for X, Y, and Z. We would love to test it out on real world problems and real world data. We as the state, we don't have a lot of money. Man, we are rich in data, right? And so now we've got to be mindful about how we use that data, because we've been entrusted with some really sensitive and private data, and I can share some strategies there that where North Carolina is kind of leading the way from a thought leadership standpoint around synthetic data. I promise not to get too technical, but that's something that has the other states leaning in. They're like, okay, tell us more about what you're doing there. But yeah, so and then there's also step one is let's get our problems with the leading edge vendors that are out there, and let's hack away for 60 days at some of these problems. And then we've also got a work stream to start bringing in the universities, right? Because again, I've got a demographic issue in my workforce, and so so actually our state CIO, she has kind of made it a rule. She said, you know what, we're going to start by hiring like early career first. So students coming out of 4-year degrees, of 2-year degrees in community colleges, we just signed an agreement with the Carolina Cyber Network where like 22, I think, colleges and community colleges and universities in the state, they're funneling their graduates through North Carolina Department of IT, and man, we're getting some really bright, hungry, just energetic talent, and it's like, yes, this is perfect.
Wow, that's great. So you talk a little about data, you talk a lot about talent. Can we talk a little bit about the foundation that makes it all possible, the infrastructure? How would you describe North Carolina's readiness for supporting all this amount of data, systems, data management, connectivity? Because that's part of our challenge with digital divide is connectivity for the public, but you're talking a little bit more about those the thought leaders. How would you assess North Carolina's readiness with connectivity and computing power?
Cool. And let me just clarify that question. Yeah. Are you asking more from like infrastructure and connectivity for the masses, for our citizens, or more for us as a state trying to do more AI work and trying to get smarter at that, or both?
I think the state would be a good place to start. Like how is it going to, you're bringing in talent, you've got lots of data, you mentioned data. North Carolina's rich with data. So what about the infrastructure that supports all of this computing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me take one half step back and kind of set the context for us. The point of the accelerator is for us to help our state agencies, all 60,000 state employees, get more AI literate, right? So we're trying to create the demand for more AI work and AI infrastructure. Right now I have some vendors coming and saying, well, how do you parse out your GPUs and and it's like, I don't even have that demand right now yet, right? I would say that we as a state are pretty early in our AI journey, right? So we need to mature a little more collectively. Now we have some bright spots, don't get me wrong. We have some real bright spots, and you always do amongst different agencies of folks who are really innovating and doing some awesome things with AI. And so I lean into those folks too. But again, I've got 60,000 who are just dipping a toe into the pool. Let me make sure that they're comfortable and that they're building, I'm building their trust in me and in the technology, as well as trying to provide the infrastructure for those our brightest and best. And so we have a lot of the, how do I say this? As technologists, we always need more tools, right? And in this AI world, like I could buy the best tools today, but tomorrow there'll be a whole new set of tools out there. So from an infrastructure standpoint, we feel pretty lean, we feel pretty light. And by the way, like, and my situation and the way that other states have done it is the exact same way. Year one, they'll hire somebody to lead up AI for the state, but have zero budget. Right? and so it's hard to create much infrastructure without a budget. But what we're trying to do with the accelerator is to tell so many stories already and get people like excited with nothing, with zero budget. And I think we can do that actually. And that's being a good steward actually of the tax dollars, so that by the time the legislators start talking about budget for next year, and I come with my hand out, like we can say, look at all these stories that we've told for each and every one of these agencies. So the executive order requires that each of these agencies submit 3 ideas to the AI accelerator, right? And we've already gotten some really thoughtful ideas, y'all. Sorry, I'm going back to accelerator again, but just to give you hope, because this excites me, in the 4 weeks since the executive order's been out, and yes, even though the governor says, you are required to do this, I haven't been pushing very hard on folks, and we've gotten 22 thoughtful project submissions from 6 different agencies. So if you do the quick math, that's more than 3, right? And this is using AI, not just on a personal productivity, like, oh, how do I use ChatGPT? But this is using AI on, like, how do I shrink the procurement process down? How do I use it to match invoices with contracts so I don't have an army of people having to do that? How do I use it in HR, right, to be more thoughtful, again, about our poor HR reps, especially this time of year with open enrollment, you kind of get the same questions all day long, every day, right? And they're so, they are good at what they do, and they're happy to do it. But I think AI can help assist with a lot of that sort of stuff. So some really thoughtful uses there. But anyway, all that just to say, we are building the infrastructure. The way we set up our accelerator, and I'm pretty honest with our vendors. Like, I have no money for you right now. But what we can do is tell a story together, right? So in the 60 days, if you show us a compelling solution to one of our problems, I'm happy to publicly say, you know what, we had this problem, this vendor came in and invested in us for this problem, and this stuff works pretty well, because that's what all the AI tech vendors want right now. Like, everything's new enough. Again, I don't have money, but you know what? We are a credible entity as a state, and for us to be able to say, you know what, we've tested it on our problems, this stuff works. So I'm trying to get really creative on how to bring us the infrastructure, and we are, and these vendors are stepping up. It's not a long-term solution, but right now we have all the tools that we need. We have access to some of the most leading-edge tools that are out there. What excites me too is when some of these big-name vendors say, wow, North Carolina, no other state is talking about AI the way you're talking about AI. How can we help? And I say, well, you know what? I need this resource. I need this training. I need this capacity for these problems, right? And so when we scope it out, all these vendors, and having come from the private sector, and they all have an appetite to give. But what's hard, they all have an appetite to give, but like they can't give forever, right? Like without end. And so when we scope out the problems well, I think that's a good service to all of us, and that allows them to help out in some pretty amazing ways.
So let's turn over to like public awareness. I read on your LinkedIn profile, yes, it's talking to you. I love AI literacy. So, Kramden's been leaning into this space with our Summer of AI series. It happened last year, and now we have a Summer of AI and a Fall of AI series to help the public and educators explore AI hands-on. From your perspective, what does the public need to know about AI? And how can we help people engage with it thoughtfully and responsibly? You talked about trust. Where do we need to go with the public in terms of trust of the state agencies, AI as a tool, and then who has access to their data?
Yeah. So I think as a public, and I think this is a great opportunity right now because everybody's kind of naturally curious in AI, right? Like in 2022, ChatGPT made AI a household word, and now and everybody's got the natural kind of natural curiosity, also self-preservation, right? Because there's so many AI type scams, and there are plenty of scams that aren't AI but still get blamed for it, and that's okay, right? But what it's done is it's made people just naturally curious about AI. So I think in this new AI world, there's some new muscles all of us need to develop as citizens, right? And one of them is just the ability to fact check, right? AI is forcing us to be more critical. Like, oh, when I get a phone call from Cyndy saying she's trapped on the side of the road and needs me to wire some cash so that she can get towed, you know, like, maybe I ought to shoot Cyndy a text real quick, and she'll say, no, actually, I'm at home on my couch. What's up? You know, right? Because so fact checking is a critical skill that we need to teach all of us, and as well as our kids in this new AI world, you know, and just yeah. I think if I could just pick one, that would be the same.
Great. So we have leaders here from healthcare, education, nonprofits, tech, and finance, all facing different opportunities and challenges. So where do you see the strongest AI use cases emerging across these sectors in North Carolina, outside of what state government?
Yeah, you know, if I had my druthers, I wouldn't take something as powerful as AI and use it on people's health and people's money first. But that's kind of where we've leaned into, because again, the potential is so big. And actually the financial services sector is doing some of the most thoughtful work around doing AI right, you know, and being thoughtful and careful about it. I feel, yeah, I mean financial services, healthcare, there's a lot of great stuff being done there. I think, you know, that question's hard, because one thing I learned from the president of the Wake Tech Community College, if you can replace the word AI with the internet, all of a sudden things start making more sense. Like, many of us, you know, like, remember when the internet first came out, right? Like, everybody's like, oh my goodness, this thing called the internet, what, like, you know, it's gonna solve all our problems, and then, you know, .com. But today, knowing what we know now, it feels kind of silly to say, hey, I'm going to college for the internet. Excuse me, right? But if you replace AI, like, that's kind of where we are. AI does so much. It's going to permeate every part of everyday life, you know, in every industry, just like the internet has, you know, and so it's hard to just pick one and say, oh, hey, we've got some, right, because it's going to have a net positive benefit on all aspects of life.
Well, so given the time and the fact that I think there's probably a lot of curious people out there, would you be open to some Q&A?
Yeah, I'd love it.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop asking the questions, and just to ask, first of all, how many of all of you, just by show of hands, are experimenting with a little bit of AI for either personal or professional reasons? Yeah, pretty much 90% of the room. So I'm gonna open up to questions. We've got I-Sah here. He is the appointed leader on this topic. So we'd love to hear some of your more pointed questions and put it up. Anyone? Yes, sir, Dave.
Dave Kirby, NCTNA. I've heard you talk a lot today about the excitement about the opportunities in the AI space, especially for the state. And I always look, in the case of technology development and innovative things, which is been a career doing, to how are you going to manage the downside risk side of these things? Everything from literal liability to maybe pooled insurance to whatever the heck it is the state can do to help ensure that we find a balance between getting things out that are going to be good for the public and managing to, as there'll always be, managing to pick up the negative results in the cases that those happen.
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I was just sitting here thinking, gosh, I've spent so much time talking about the technology, but as we all know, like, technology is just 30% of the journey, right? The rest of it is really more about the people and the processes. And that's really why I was hired. So with my background in AI ethics and AI governance, you know, it's really developing these new muscles that we need to use AI safely and successfully, you know, and that's the process aspect. So teaching every single manager, every single worker, certainly in state government, but across the workforce, what are the key questions you need to ask when you're looking at an AI project, whether it's insurance or whatever, you know? So for example, you know, if I can only get one question to teach people to ask, it's just asking, for whom does this not work for, right? Because as an engineer, I was trained, you give me a problem, I'll give you 5 different ways to solve that problem, you pick the best one, or we pick the best one, and we roll. Nobody ever taught me how to ask, for whom does this not work for? But with AI, it's so powerful that if you don't ask that question up front, you're gonna find out pretty quickly as soon as you flip that switch, right? But then another question is like, hey, how can this be weaponized? You know, like, oh, hey, I got this great new tool, a way to use, you know, AI to come alongside the HR, you know, employees to make HR easier. Okay, but what happens if there's a disgruntled manager or employee? How can they weaponize something like this, right? And just being really thoughtful and thinking through. So this leads to like governance and what are the checks and balances to make sure this thing doesn't go crazy or haywire or it doesn't get weaponized by another human. You know, we've got to think through all of that and be really thoughtful up front. Because as technologists, like, you know, we can be short-sighted and say, okay, problem, solution, we're good. But, you know, people forget, like with AI, you hear about drift, right? Like, hey, over time, the model becomes less relevant. And it's not that the technology drifts, it's that we as people drift, right? Our conversations, how we talk drifts, our behavior drifts. And so the model I trained today may not be very relevant tomorrow or next year or next month, right? So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but we've just got to be thoughtful about how we deploy it and have the processes well laid out.
I'd also expect some entertaining of public policy outcomes that make sure that the people who are behind a given AI and are the benefactors for its use in terms of being a producer, that they're also liable in certain cases and sheltered from liability in other cases. And the same things we've done with every generation of technology since I've been alive, and that's a long time. So,
point well taken.
I guess I was thinking about, my head when it went to public policy was more like what we get the legislature to carve out things that both protect and hold accountable people who are producing AI when they do things that are not good for the world.
Yeah, so accountability from the vendors and you know, point well taken. Yeah, you know, but like Mike, I agree. I'm not disagreeing. At the end of the day, though, I feel like our legislators, no legislator in the world will ever be able to keep up with the pace of how quickly the technology is advancing, right? Responsible innovation first requires responsible innovators. Like, yes, the legislators need to set the guidelines and the guardrails and just make sure, like, hey, you're not going to cross this line. Here's the floor, right? But there's so much above that floor as things continue to advance. And so my mission is like, hey, how do we breed more responsible innovators, good safe drivers on the road, right? Kind of thing to also come in concert with the legislation that needs to happen.
We get 2 more hands, Tamara and then Kenneth. Go ahead, Tamara.
Sure, good morning, afternoon, everyone. Tamara Terry. I'm a trained social scientist and a researcher. So my question, it's a loaded question. So when I think about all the systems in our country, right, from education to housing to finances, we see these huge disparities in the people who do really well in the systems and the people who don't, right? There are these gaps. And so when I think about AI, I'm so excited about it, but I also want to ensure that we are giving people, how do we ensure we give people access, visibility to learn the system and teach the system so we don't find ourselves in a situation where we've created this new system where we have these huge disparities again, right? We've created this new system where everyone doesn't have opportunity to thrive and do well in the system. So I guess the question is based in equity.
Yeah.
So.
You know, That's a lovely question, and it's a huge question, right? But I'll try my best to answer it quickly. I feel like, I came to America at 5 years of age as an immigrant, right? Because this was the land of opportunity, and I'm thankful, praise God. Like, I didn't grow up poor. My kids aren't growing up poor the way I did, and I'm so grateful for this country. I'm so grateful for the opportunities here. And when you look at what AI has and can do, like even just, it's so easy to learn and gain the knowledge, right? Like the opportunities are there right now to learn, and we need to expand that. So for example, for me, like I think of broadband access, right? North Carolina's done a great job. I mean, a leading state in just getting broadband and pushing it out to every corner of our state, even the most rural areas. And I see that as kind of the highways, if you will, right? Because once you have that broadband access and they can access all the knowledge, even if it's on YouTube, like I know there's a lot of crazy stuff and cat videos on YouTube, but you know what? My family and I, we built our own house on 5 years of weekends using YouTube videos and a lot of prayer, right? Like, the knowledge is there for people to grab. So I think it starts with broadband as the base, right? And that's the equity thing. So once those roads are laid out, then they can travel to all the best knowledge that's out there.
30 seconds. The only other thing I'll say is, I think there's also an issue around trust in science, to your point earlier, right? I mean, I think because people are afraid of science, and it's specifically minorities, there is a lack of, they don't want to do it. So when I say awareness, it's more really helping people to understand that this is a good thing, and it's something that will improve their human condition long term.
Yeah, and as public servants, like, it's our job, again, to tell the good stories and to raise that floor for them. So, for example, if they have broadband access and I bring more government services to their doorstep and make it a delight for them, like who wants to fix the DMV? Anybody? Like who wants us to fix the DMV? I'm not asking you to, right? It's our job, right? And so if we make it easier, next time you log on, to do something online with the government, it says, hey, it seems like you're here to renew your fishing license. Would you like me to use the information you used last year? Oh, hey, by the way, it looks like your driver's license is gonna need renewing. Would you like some help today doing that? Like, right? Like all of a sudden now we've raised the floor. And oh, by the way, you're talking to a virtual bot. Like I know I don't have to tell you. I called over the weekend a hotel chain, and I wanted directions, or I wanted to see if they had a shuttle. And 3 minutes into the conversation, I'm like, are you a bot? And it was a bot, but like they faked me out, and I felt dirty, right? Like, what is this? So, but for us, just to raise the bar on, no, here's what trustworthy looks like. You're gonna know when you're talking to a bot in the state of North Carolina. You're gonna always have the option to opt out and talk to a human being, right? Like, so it's stuff like that where we can raise the bar and show them what good looks like. Yeah.
Thank you. Ken had another question, probably our final question, if that's okay.
It's not necessarily a question. I just want to raise my hand and say we're ready to help, right? So I work with Cooperative Extension Office. There's an office in every county.
Perfect.
It's a community education resource tied to land-grant universities, NC State, NC State University. And I run a program now where we're doing digital skills in some of those counties. But AI literacy is one of the big things that is requested. So I'm raising my hand to say, we have the infrastructure spread across the state in every county already. We want to help make those North Carolinians AI literate.
That's it.
And I just want to raise my hand.
And AI literate for the topics where you guys are experts in, right? Like, I was talking to OpenAI, the people who make ChatGPT, and they're like, hey, Lowe's, based in North Carolina, like, how many Lowe's home improvement stores are there around the country, right? Like, they're a huge user of ChatGPT. So instead of every Saturday, along with, hey, come and learn how to do tile, hey, come and learn how to use AI for home improvement. Come and learn how to use AI. Like, we should be, again, if I had a big bag of money and I could do this, I would. Like, we should make our librarians the beacon of AI literacy. People have gone on for decades for all sorts of other literacy, right? Like, and so this is how we get the masses to just, again, AI is in everything, just like the internet. will touch every part of our lives, and I would welcome that kind of partnership. Yeah, no, thank you so much.
All right. With that, I think we owe I-Sah a big round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. So feel free to stay for our second tour if you didn't get in on the first tour, and then some more food so we don't have to take it home, or carts for the next 15 days. But anyways, thank you so much. Oh, before you go, we do have a little gift. Yes. We have a little gift for you from our staff, and it is a geek shirt, of course. Geek shirts, yes, he said. And then a book on digital invisibility. So people who are lost and need to cross the digital divide. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.